Some people will want the cultural things, the orchestras, the operas, the theatres, but other people will want sports to participate in, and many people, many schools have football teams, and people go water skiing and climbing, but many people just want to watch good football. And there will always be a place for good football in Glasgow, and we reckon that in Glasgow there is more good football than any other city in Europe, never mind Great Britain.
It's a match between Rangers and Celtic, and they're, as you say, the two big clubs. I think the Rangers and Celtic are two big clubs because they think big. Both of them have always thought big. Many people in football indicate that Rangers and Celtic are big because they get big crowds. No, Rangers and Celtic are big because Rangers Club and Celtic Club both think big. The legislators think big. I like to think I think big. I hope my players think big. That's the way we're schooled, that's the way we've always been brought up, because we think big, we live it big.
And there's the final picture of John Greig with the European Cup Winners' Cup.
We've got two top clubs. I don't think there's any country in the world could say that they would dare put on two European Cup ties on the one night as Glasgow did. Last year we had 150,000 people watched Celtic play Euspes Doza and Rangers play a Spanish team as well on the one night. You wouldn't find this in Rome, you wouldn't find it in Milan, you wouldn't find it in Barcelona, you wouldn't find it in Madrid, you wouldn't find it in any of the German top cities. And not only that, in recent years, Glasgow has held both the European Cup and the European Cup Winners' Cup. There are not many countries outside Holland could boast of that.
Glasgow has a stadium capacity of over 40% of the total population of this city. This shows and demonstrates the total commitment of the population of Glasgow towards football well-being.
Basically, big is a very vital word as far as the Rangers are concerned. It has been over the years, and it was rather a different make-up, and always have been, than the Celtic or the Hibs or Aberdeen or any of the other good Scottish clubs through the years.
Celtic Football Club was formed originally as a charitable organisation to raise money for the impoverished Irish immigrants who came to Scotland as they went to America and other places during the Hungry 40s when the potato crop failed. They were the second-class citizens of Glasgow, and they needed charity. They needed to help themselves. One of the reasons why, for instance, so many Catholics have succeeded in Glasgow by being publicans or bookmakers is that these were the only lucrative trades open to people without education, because they were underprivileged in education as well.
The club was founded about 1888 by some very kind gentlemen under the leadership of a Marist brother who was the headmaster in one of the local schools. The purpose of the club, as formulated at that time, was to provide free meals for the necessitous children of the East End, as it was a period of very great hardship indeed. I have followed the Celtic club more or less consistently since 1916 and have seen all the great triumphs in various parts of the world, especially the one in Lisbon and the final of the European Cup, when I had the honour of being the first person to receive the cup from Sir Robert Kelly.
Rangers mean to Glasgow like the Labour Party means to Glasgow, like the Conservative Party means to Glasgow, like the Protestants mean to Glasgow, like the Catholics mean to Glasgow, like the rich means to Glasgow, and like the poor. We are a very vital and a very alive part of Glasgow. Glasgow Rangers, people eat and sleep Glasgow Rangers. Supporters go home on a Saturday night if the Rangers lose, they give their wife a bashing about. It's more than just a focal point to hang their sporting instincts on. It's part of their life. They grow up with it. Parents rearing kids rear them on the folklore of Glasgow Rangers as much as they do in the Bible. The people of Glasgow mean a tremendous lot to Glasgow Rangers. We are very proud on almost every occasion of the people, the very ordinary people that we give pleasure to in the game, in their life.
I was doing in England for a long time as well, you know. I used to come up to England and for Bolton and that, you know, travel all over for them. Oh, well, I spent a fortune on Rangers, you know. Oh, I work as I'm working in the parts now at you know, storeman in the parts department, Alexander Park, just across the way there, you know. I like my job as well, but I don't work overtime. They keep asking me to work overtime, but I don't, because I like to go to the matches. I like to go to all the matches I can, you know. And the most important thing is I wanted now, so is to get my footy took on the Ibrox with the team, you know. With the whole team, plus the managers, you know. That's what I would like to get, you know.
This sense of identification, this sense of commitment to the club is a very real thing and a very relevant thing. They've got a greater sense of identification, I would suggest, than sometimes the people have who buy into a club, who may be the biggest shareholders of a club. And for many Scots working people, the game is not only the 90 minutes, it's meeting their friends before the game. It's going up in a club bus, a supporters bus, in being there in the game, a collective sense of identity. When the game's finished, to go back again and to have a pint of beer and talk about the game. In other words, the game's relived over discussions at your work. And it's a very real, one could almost say vital part of social life in the 1970s in Scotland, and I think elsewhere.
Celtic is part of me. I'm not just part of Celtic. Celtic are part of me. We've got to work and talk about the game. After the game on a Saturday, we discuss it. On Monday we discuss it. Tuesday we discuss it. When the magazine comes out on Wednesday, we discuss it. Right up to the following Saturday, another game. And after the game, we discuss it again. It just goes on week after week after week. The whole of this season, League Cup, League, Scottish Cup, European Cup, you name it, we discuss it. It's just football, football all the time. There's nothing different, nothing more. It's just Celtic. Celtic is us, and we are Celtic. That's Celtic in a nutshell. We are Celtic. It's not Celtic that makes us. We are the people that make Celtic.
I don't think that's enough for a fully satisfying human life. It's more an indictment of society that there is this reliance on football to give people a sense of identity. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, but certainly it seems to me a bit of a hallmark of a society which has proven itself inadequate in terms of giving people a sense of belonging and a sense of identification. I think that it's asking far too much of football to expect it to play this all-embracing social role. And I'm saying that as someone that loves the game, and so do the great majority of my fellow Scots.
Well, we have certain problems just now. When a city is rebuilding itself on a massive scale, as we are rebuilding in Glasgow, then it looks untidy. At the same time in industry, we are changing from the older forms of industry to new forms of industry, and this creates problems in employment. And we have a higher degree of unemployment here than in other parts of the country. And part of my work as Lord Provost is to encourage new industry to come in and settle in Glasgow and to have further developments of employment.
There is no sense of identification with institutions, with organisations. The sort of setup of modern industry certainly creates the attitude of mind on the part of the worker that he cannot identify himself with his place of work. I mean, he owns nothing in that place of work, not a brick. It's owned by shareholders whom he's never seen. The fate of his company can be determined in a boardroom on the other side of the world if he's employed by some multinational concern. I mean, that's at work. And then in life, the modern day planners seem to be soulless. They design towns almost as if they were dormitories, where you come from your work and you go to sleep at night. They develop town centres which are not town centres at all, but commercial shopping centres. And when the shops close, it's then an asphalt concrete jungle, like a cemetery that remains dead until the shops open the next day or when the weekend's over. And so you could go through various aspects of life, and there's not many opportunities open for a person to identify. Now, I think this is where football comes in.
And we Glasgow and Rangers are completely synonymous. But we're a wider scope than that because we have fans and supporters from all over the country, all over the world. We feel we're a worldwide organisation. Indeed, when we had our centenary, we had people coming from Canada and from Australia, and we had a fascinating night. It was full of nostalgia. We had invited over 230 old Rangers players. The oldest of whom had been a goalkeeper for us in 1902 and was 97 years of age. It was quite fascinating to think that football took us back over these old eras, and an old fella like that was still as lively and fresh and still a great love for the game of football. We're very proud to be 100 years old. Indeed, we're very proud of the fact that Glasgow Rangers Football Club was in motion before there was any football in Europe, any organised football in Europe.
I don't think that we in the present day have done as much for Celtic as our predecessors have done for the club. because the club had to overcome prejudices outside football to try and get itself established. It's been easier for us than it has been for these people. They were in an era when it was a great thing to be playing for Celtic. It was a great thing even to have a job.
The Catholics were immigrants. They were poor, they were uneducated. They came here to escape from the death that had struck Ireland when the potato famine came in the 40s and other famines came later on. The British government, by brilliant fiscal operations, managed to reduce the population of Ireland by about 2/3. Some by death, others by immigration. When the Irish came here, they represented to the indigenous Protestant population here in Govan, in the shipbuilding area of the Clyde. These Irishmen represented the kind of threat to the local Protestants that the Puerto Ricans represent to poor white trash in New York. The lower classes, the proles of Glasgow, who were being exploited and underemployed and underpaid, saw the Catholics, the Irish, as the most terrible threat to their standards of living. These people who came over to dig the canals and build the railways and later on the hydroelectric schemes were people who would work for less money than they would. Instead of realising they had this in common, that they were all working class people whose interests were the same, they saw the incomers as a threat and they hated them accordingly. They called them Fenians.
We've always felt that we were number one, and we've tried to live up to that all through 100 years. I think that the people who were in charge of the legislation of this club were proud people in themselves, who liked to think that they were better than the next man or the next other club who was coming up at their back. They always tried to be one step ahead in everything they did. I think basically it was started at that time as a diversion and purely as a sport. It's gone beyond sporting instincts now. It's all top clubs like Glasgow Rangers and the big clubs throughout Europe. They're run as business organisations.
Well, the Rangers Football Club is a public company, is a limited company. You've got to buy shares, become a shareholder. Any member of the public can buy shares in the Rangers Football Club. You can buy them in the stock exchange through a stockbroker.
We founded for charity, and charity is still very much in our mind. But as we are now living in a welfare state, the conditions that existed in 1887, 1888 are no longer true today, so that our projection of charity is on a much larger sphere today than it was in those days. Whereas in those days, all the charities were local because the need was local. It was a great need locally at that time. Today, the need, unfortunately, is worldwide, such as Oxfam, UNICEF, so that although we do give to local charities, we also do give today on a world scale.
We have big business within Glasgow Rangers, like the weekly pools we have, but nothing has ever been allowed to overshadow the basic principle of playing the game and interesting the public who want to see Glasgow Rangers play football.
Well, the pools has had a phenomenal rise, and it has grown over the years to the staggering figure of today of 655,000 participants each week paying for their ticket in the pools. You had a social club build which cost over £500,000, and I could build, if I kept the money for the next 2 years, I could build another social club and have £100,000 still left in the bank. The demand for the social club is extraordinary. So much so that we've limited it to 20,000 members, and that's the membership to date. And there are more people wanting in the waiting list than there are members.
I think it's about time I came down these steps. Good evening, ladies. There's a stupid, smiling gentleman here.
Then I had the idea of building a club within a club. We have a luxurious suite that we call the Ibrox Suite, which we agreed would be £8 dearer than the £2 membership from the social club. Now this caused tremendous trouble at the beginning because they said this was not done, this was segregation. They called it segregation, class distinction. So much so that we were banned from even opening. We had the staff employed here and they banned it for a court case. And then again, we had tremendous trouble because it was common in clubs all over Scotland that they had one bar only of something like a 6 feet opening. And we had 4 bars. Now, how could you serve 1,000 people with pints of beer and being served, Marky, from the bar? And I fought and I got 3 opened and they wouldn't give me the 4th. However, we left the bars completely wired and we got the 4th bar. And now we can supply this amount of beer and wine and whiskey without any trouble at all.
We certainly have a hooligan element which damages the game of football and does it no good whatsoever. It's actually the bugbear of our life, the hooligan fan who causes trouble, who when they get drunk or get involved in fighting mood, it seems to affect some of them that way. I've come out quite openly, publicly, in the press and in the public media, and I've come out face to face with them. They're in a minority, but we get a very bad reputation because of that. And Barcelona was a case in point, although I think there were extenuating circumstances. But Barcelona, the Rangers club, suffered very severely. Not only dented their image, but also halted the progress of the playing side of the game, being out of Europe for a year. We must be in Europe. We've got to be in Europe. All good teams with ambition have got to be in Europe every year.
A city's image is not just through football. We held an international violin competition just 3 weeks ago, in which violinists from all over the world came to Glasgow. And it was a feast of music for music lovers. You know that somebody from Australia came all the way from Sydney to see the ring cycle in Glasgow because this was the only place in the world he could see it. But we do have an image through football, and unfortunately, that image is not always good. The same weekend as we have had trouble in Glasgow, however, we have had trouble in, and I've got the papers in front of me, Carlisle and Workington. 34 people were arrested in a game. Another one in England, 148 people were arrested. Another one, 42 people were arrested. This is something that's happening to football all over Great Britain. At the same time, I'm certainly not happy about the position. And I'm encouraging the clubs to discipline their supporters and get rid of those people who are giving a bad name to the clubs in Glasgow and also a bad name to Glasgow abroad.
In every industrial society, there are elements and a percentage of the working class that actually get demoralized by the circumstances of their life. The term is lumpen. Lumpen proletarians, as the term's been given, lumpen working class people. I wouldn't put that percentage in Scotland or indeed in most countries higher than 1 or 2%. In Scotland, a strong section of that demoralised people identify with Rangers and or Celtic. If Rangers and Celtic didn't exist, something else would have to be invented that would be an object around which these elements would polarise.
Nobody speaking about Celtic and Rangers should avoid the question of religion. The Rangers Football Club is not actually a Protestant football club, it's an anti-Catholic football club. Celtic, for instance, although it started as a Catholic charitable organisation, was not particularly religious. It was Irish. It was a national organisation rather than a religious organisation. And they have no religious scruples. I mean, there are many Protestants have played for a Celtic football club, but never a Catholic ever played for Rangers.
And strangely enough, one of the worst games was always Glasgow Rangers and Glasgow Celtic. It's a small law, and from one end of the ground they snarl at the other end of the ground, where they segregate and they snarl at each other. And it certainly gives the background details of warring communities.
I don't think there's any doubt that a lot of the bitterness between Catholic and Protestant here is that the Catholics were immigrants. The savagery, however, that surrounds the feelings of the fans of these clubs is genuinely a historical myth. The Rangers tend to take their enthusiasm not from Scotland but from Northern Ireland and from the celebrated King Billy, King William of Orange, who defeated the forces of the Stuart dynasty at the Battle of the Boyne. Now, this is believed by Protestant bigots in Glasgow to have been the victory of the Protestant over the Catholic. It's rubbish. The Vatican was delighted at it. King Billy himself was known in Europe as a friend of the convents. In his travels, he lived in convents. He made great benefactions of money and kindnesses to the convents. But this has been turned into a great Protestant-Catholic battle. It was not. It was the old squalid struggle for power and for a throne.
On the field there always is rivalry, keen, razor-edged rivalry, based not on any resentment of one or the other, but just because of the fact that these players have been schooled and brought up to get victory, and it's the meeting of the two Goliaths, and they've got to be razor-edged, keen, enthusiastic, fire in their belly, to play in a game like that, and to play to the best of their ability. They've got to show the real guts and verve for playing and the sheer desire for winning.
Here are the teams, Glasgow Rangers and Dark Shirts, playing on their own ground. John Thompson, Scottish international goalkeeper, is among the Celtic team who play in striped shirts.
In Glasgow today, the battle is not between a team and a team. It's between the prods and the papes. And Rangers Football Club is dedicated to the cause of anti-popery. believing, like the bigots in Northern Ireland, that the Pope is the Antichrist, the Scarlet Woman of Rome.
It was held in Glasgow's Roman Catholic Cathedral, St Andrews. The Lord Provost, Sir Donald Liddell, represented the city of Glasgow, and the congregation was made up of many denominations from all walks of life, including some relatives of the 66 who died in the disaster. Celtic's manager Jock Stein was there with members of his team. So were players and officials from the Rangers club. The service was conducted by the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Glasgow, James Scanlon. On Saturday, the Church of Scotland will be holding a memorial service in Glasgow Cathedral. Rangers manager Willie Waddle was in the congregation with the club chairman, Mr. John Lawrence. Although the service inevitably was Roman Catholic in its form, it was a moving and impressive occasion when Glasgow's strong Protestant and Catholic communities remembered together, a gathering of the two religious groups who normally tend to split in their traditional support of the two teams playing in Saturday's match of disaster.
And they still call Irishmen and Catholics Fenians. The very word is 60 years out of date. Fenians, well, De Valera, who was a Protestant, was a Fenian. But we call, in Glasgow, we call Catholics Fenians. There is a story in this very powerful Protestant area of a man who went into a pub quite near here, near Ibrox Park, the home of Rangers, leading a live alligator, and said to the barman, "Do you serve Catholics in here?" And the barman, looking at the alligator, decided to be discreet and said, "Oh yes sir, we serve anybody." He said, "Well, a pint for me and a Catholic for my friend." And that is the situation here, and it still goes on. In an age when we are flinging scrap iron at the moon, the governed Protestant is terrified that his life may be destroyed by a wee fella from Ireland. My gorge rises and my stomach quails at the sight of this idiot bigotry of the Rangers fan who will not tolerate a Tim Malloy, a boy, a Catholic. That's really what's wrong with these greatest rivals in the world. They are fighting a battle that was over long ago, and even when it was there, was not the battle they thought it was.
Well, I think to put it bluntly, without Celtic or Rangers, Scottish football would sink to the level that it is in Northern Ireland, for instance, which is only part-time players playing for part-time clubs before part-time spectators. I think that Celtic and Rangers are really the image of Scottish football. We are the people who can draw the crowds to our games. We are the people who people want to come and see. Without Celtic or Rangers, there's lots of people think it would be a better league without them. But without the players of these two clubs, Scottish football would be nothing. Football is still a game. You may have your favourite team, whether it be Celtic, be it Rangers, but we like to think that whoever we play, we are a football team, nothing more. We are a football team who play anyone, from anywhere, from any walk of life, from any religion, from any creed. That is Celtic Football Club.
I hope the tradition never changes in this club. It's maybe an old-fashioned way of looking at things, but I think I'm a wee bit old-fashioned. Be quiet. I'll phone you back. Where was I?